Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. I don't know when you're viewing this, so we may as well just call it any one of those. This is actually my second voyage, so a little experience under my belt talking to you, but I'm looking at a lens, so I'm trying to imagine faces while I'm doing this. This little installment is going to be about my pedal board, I've reconfigured basically what I've done, how I've thought about guitar in the last 25, almost 30 years. If you remember from Robert's video when we were talking about sounds of the 80s, and predominantly it was the chorusy, Robert refers to it, he said that I said mucho chorus, and that's exactly how we lived. We lived either drenched in chorus, right? Drenched, saturated, so that the sound was everywhere and yet no one specific place to get around all the huge drums and keyboard sounds, or we just lived in the world of saturation, distortion. So it was one of the two. I've become a little more nuanced in my older years. I grew up a little bit. Last episode when I was talking about just amps when I moved back to Nashville, that was the first part. And keep this in mind as I'm talking about this pedal board today. My first go-to still when I'm coming up with a part with a tone is usually not to go through the pedal board at first. It's kind of one of those things where I use a pedal board when necessary, if I need to change sounds, if I'm playing, say, for somebody, and I need to make some changes, then I will default to that. If it's just me in my studio, I'd say 85%, 90% of the time, I'm going to go through an amp first and just start from that point, because I record in Pro Tools pretty much exclusively, and it's just easy to find the effects, the verbs, the delays. Just put it on after the fact. You get the most direct sound. And if you're being a purist, which I'm not, but if you are being a purist, going through all this stuff just degrades the tone a little bit. So you have to twiddle with your amp knobs and what have you to make up for that, compensate for it. But today, this is the pedal board. As I've re-engaged with my guitar playing self, I basically, I'm even doing a gig in 2 months, so I'm really excited about that. I haven't really done that in a long time, and I needed a pedal board. Yeah, I called my friends at XTS. Barry is great, and I just told him my needs, which were very minimal. I still, I'm not the effects guy, like Michael Thompson, who's a friend and who is just amazing at that. A lot of guys here in Nashville. Derek Wells comes to mind, Jerry McPherson. These guys are just pedal aficionados. I'm not leaving out other people. It's just that those guys have gone the extra mile, and they just know the ins and outs of all the gear. I've always been kind of a 50%er. In the 80s, I had Bob Bradshaw, right there, and so who needed anything else? It was like you ask and he put it on there and it was done. You pressed a button on his board and you had the sound. So anyway, this is what Barry and I kind of concocted. And I'm sure this thing, he created it so that I can pull these things off as need be, which, I think is a good idea, because, inevitably you'll find a new pedal that inspires you, and you'll want to go to that. So you want to be able to stick it on the board. But basic food groups here. Obviously a tuner, right? Several layers of saturation, of preamp boost, smaller boost. I had the steel string from Vertex, which is very subtle. It just boosts the signal to the pedal board. You get a little what is it? He has a couple settings. I use it on the rock setting for whatever that's worth. It seems like it just is a little fatter. There's a filter and a gain, so that you can kind of mess with it. I set it for very low gain. So, for instance, if this is an A chord right here, right? That's straight through the rev amp. And I got to mention today that we are going something I haven't done. I've heard about this. I've never really done it. It's the aux made by Universal Audio, which is just basically acts as the cabinet, and it sounds fantastic. So I may be calling Sweetwater Sound here in the next few hours and getting my version of that. Right there, front pickup on my Tyler guitar, which I love. That's just basically straight into the rev amp, right? So first stage of gain, the steel string. You can hear that, right? If I look this way, I'm looking at Robert Baker. He's my guru on this. So,
it's like an always on pedal.
Yeah. Right? This on. Just that little bit of saturation, just pushing the front end of the amp. I love that. The second, if I have these dialed right, each step up for me, I mean, each pedal is a step up just slightly. Here's the Ultra Phoenix, which I believe was modeled somewhat similar to a Dumble amp, if I'm not mistaken about that. You can go to Vertex. Mason is phenomenal with this. He brought these over just really as stocking stuffers for me because I did his podcast and his little parting gifts or whatever. And I tried them out and it was like, these have to go in my pedal board. And so here's the Ultra Phoenix, same lick. You hear just a little bit more. Right? I'm going to keep playing the same thing just so that we get a point of comparison. Going back to the steel string. Ultra Phoenix and the steel string. So you see where I'm going. All of a sudden, there's another gear there, especially if I go on to maybe like a right. Just gives you kind of like a tube screamer with both of them. Then I'm going to go next to the Blues Driver. It's an old pedal that I've had for. It's been in my pedal closet, probably going on 30 years, and just I can't get away from this one. You see just a little extra bit there with the steel string in. Now we're getting serious, right? So all of a sudden, little giant. These settings work great for that. And then if I need to get into the solo thing, hide behind some saturation so my shitty technique doesn't get too exposed, then I go to this guy right here. Right? So you see where all of a sudden this is kind of going, right? It's like... I love that. I mean, that's a really good saturation for distortion. And I'm just going through the clean channel on the amp. Here's with a little steel string. Basically, you've got the idea. It's just, it's mixing and matching. As you're playing, that along with the volume knob on the guitar, you're just able to dial in all these levels of saturation. But for me, I realized that I almost needed 4 of these because what I did on, I know this sounds, this is what bugs me. I'm talking to you here, and I'm going to refer to this record that I did. It's not that I'm just, well, I'm shameless anyway, so we'll just get that out of the way. I'm not trying to promote this thing. That being said, I'm very proud of it, and I hope you go to bakedalaska.com. I'm so full of shit. I love this. I love the record. I've learned a lot from the record. I've said on many podcasts, and I'm sure there's going to be some overlap, so bear with me on this. When I did the record, I basically had 2 or 3 guitars and a rev amp, and I think I used the dual Overdrive by itself and the Super Moon by Mr. Black. That's really what I had. I was much too lazy. I didn't even have this pedal board. I had another monster pedal board that I bought from Tom Bukovac that I found it was too heavy for me to lift and move, so I just put it in the closet and let it die there. But I learned from the record kind of what my needs were. And as I was playing through these songs, basically what I do, as I'm playing a solo line and I needed more saturation, usually I would just go to the different channel on the amp, which is great. mess with my volume knob, and that was the truest way to get the levels of distortion. And when I got to the solo and I needed the afterburners, I'd just kick on the dual overdrive. And again, all these sounds, I think people get really hung up with, you know, how do you set your pedals? I can see why people would want to do that. I remember calling Mike Landau one time after I saw him play. He was playing with James Taylor. He was playing at the arena in Nashville, and he played a solo. I think all he had is like a little Fender, you know, I don't think it was a twin. It may have been a Vibrolux or whatever it was. Small Fender combo and a small pedal board. And I kid you not, the solo sound on this one song, I don't even remember what the song was. They gave him some room to play, and it was celestial. The tone was this, the strings were this big and round. And I texted him after the show, and I didn't see him, but I texted him, and I said, I know it's in your hand, so you know, forgive me for asking about your gear, but how do you get that tone? I mean, what gear are you using? And he explained it was a combination of rolling off all the top end on his guitar, which was something I never did, probably most of my life until about now. I don't know if I never thought of it or just whatever, but it was like that was an epiphany, number one. He said the pedal, I thought he said a dual overdrive, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think there was something else. Somebody corrected me the other day. So the point is, it was the idea. It's not the pedals. Pedals are great, don't get me wrong, but it's the combination of this, the amp, how everything reacts with one another. So that's kind of, you know, today, like I'm at Robert's place where he films, and I don't have my amps and my gear, my cabinets. I have a pedal board and a guitar, which I think is a great way to even talk and frame this. These are tools that you have to be fluid with. You have to move with these things because there is no static sound, no static tone. It changes if you play from one room in your house to the next. It's going to change. You have to react. If you play in a club, if you play in an arena, same thing. It's gonna change. You have to tweak knobs because it's going to react differently. If you're in the studio, hyper focused, it's going to sound different every day. So these pedals, it's like these are settings that I use kind of as my 101, my start, my basic food groups, and then I change as I go. This pedal board is kind of the representation of what I did on my solo record. It gives me enough gas, it gives me enough effects, and I'll start going through them again. So where I can kind of accomplish most of the tones on the record. And I actually use this, I actually did a session the other day, a tracking session. A friend called me and said, hey, would you play a session? I said, yeah, as long as you have a better guitar player with more gear out there, so to cover my ass on, in case I don't get all the sounds. And they said, nah, just do what you do. So I took this pedal board and it was sensational. So anyway, getting back to it, I'm gonna go back to a cleaner sound. I use a lot of middle pickup in clean tones, right? Always love the delay. Within the delay too, I'm using a Strymon.
Is the Brig another Tom suggestion?
No, I think this was what Barry said. I don't remember. I'm talking with Robert, so he's the phantom of you guys know this guy. No, I just wanted a decent mono delay, and this seems to have. It has. What I love about it is it has that modulation with it. I always like when there's just. It feeds back a little bit, and it makes its own chorus. A little extra right down here. Tapping into a little bit of the 80s. You see where that's headed? That's the M9, which is a pedal board within itself. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I did a gig. I do a gig every 10 years, and it was a benefit. Wonderful guitar player here in Nashville, Todd Zilla. You guys probably know who that is. And he had a house fire, so everybody in the community wanted to pitch in, help out. He's beloved. He's a pillar of our music culture here in Nashville. And I got a call from Mike Brignadello, the bass player in our band Giant from decades, centuries ago. He said, "Would you?" I didn't know, by the way, about the benefit. I didn't know about Todd's house burning down. Mike's first word, "Hey, there's a show. Would you?" And I said, "No." I have a hard time going back. You guys are actually reeling me back in, and we'll get into that on the next episode when I start breaking down some Giant songs, which I have been practicing. Mike explained what it was, and then I of course I was shamed into saying, of course I got to do this, but I'm not gonna sing, right? That's the deal breaker. I can't sing. I mean, I can, but you don't want to hear it. So he took care of that. Brian Cole came and sang and aced it. I did the gig. I didn't have a pedal board that I could lift, so my pedal board was this M9 stomp box. And the same thing, it's got all what this pedal board has on it. It has all the distortions that you got in the Line 6. All the multi effects. It's its own little unit. People like Tom Bukovac and Derek Wells basically they own this thing. Let's just say they know you can get so deep in this thing. I choose to stay at a little safe distance. I get what did I get? My chorus sound, which you would I enjoy my if you need a little bit of a that's the opto tremolo. That's great, and you can also tap in the tempo, so that's usable. I use a little plate every once in a while. Take off the tremolo, right? Nice little plate, kind of Jeff Beckish, right? Delay, and then a couple of let's turn off that. Probably need to deal with that a little bit. The drive is too much. Yeah, and this is what we do, right? Find the drive to the lower octave. Yeah, that would work. It would work with. I got a song called "No Way Out" that I'm going to break down a little bit later today. That'll work great for the verse on that one. You get the idea. Great multi effects if you need kind of those extra colors on your pedal board in a very small little space. Highly recommend it. Getting back to the chain here. Really, there's not much left to go other than I love this little Boss vibrato pedal. And I use it on, Robert, what's it called? I use it on...
Non-latching.
Non-latching. Again, I was watching a Michael Thompson video on YouTube the other day. And who knew? I never knew what that was. Basically, you have your setting, and then as you're playing, right? Yeah. Just step on it. The chorus comes on. I'm using it it's a vibrato. It sounds great and it's very expressive. So I use it for that. If I'm doing a clean sound and I put a chorus on it, one would think that's enough chorus. But if you're like me from the 80s, aliens from the 80s, sometimes you want a little extra.
Mucho chorus.
Right? Mucho chorus, right? And that's almost that sound, right? Yeah, I love lifting off. Just another way of expressing by itself or with the chorus. You know, sometimes also I'm gonna go back and forth, and hopefully you guys aren't, you know, ping ponging too much with this, but this is the way my my mind, I won't even put an adjective in there, works. Everything, it all relates, right? But you're going back and forth with all this stuff. Depending on my gig that I'm doing, my one gig, my concert, how's that? My concert tour. I may put 2 choruses on there. I probably don't use vibrato the tremolo too much, so I'll probably have a couple different stages of chorus, maybe a dimension D, and then the tri-stereo, and then I have the vibrato, so I'll be covered on all that stuff. Sounds really cool when you're doing those chimey type things. Not lastly, but we're getting close to it. I was in the capacity of a producer when I heard this pedal, this next pedal, the Supermoon by Mr. Black. I was with Keith Urban. We were doing a song of his that really resonated. It was a song called Blue Ain't Your Color. And there's some backbeat hits. He was, I can't remember the song now, so I can't give you the example, but he was doing those backbeat hits, right? And Keith is a man of extremes. If you put reverb, he'll either dime it to 20 or 0. It's like if he wants to hear reverb, he wants to hear reverb. There's nothing in between. There's no subtlety to that, which I love about the way he plays guitar. And he brought out this pedal. He had Chris Miller, his tech, the keeper of all the guitars, which is quite a collection, bring out this Supermoon pedal. And so here's the... Yeah, you can set the decay and the sway, which is so cool. You hear that swims, when it swims, it starts modulating. So, you know, boom, boom, which I just freaking love this pedal, and you can dial it. It just goes forever. Great. You're hearing 2 reverbs because that's what Robert has dialed in, but I think you can hear it on top of that. It just makes it swim in a different space, and it sounds great mono by itself. I like using it for the extreme reverb and for more of an effect than just a reverb. On my Line 6, which I showed you a minute ago, that's a little bit more subtle, and I'll probably use that for the basic reverb. This is just going to be that Mondo sound, that Mondo reverb. You want something to take your head off. That's the pedal. Great pedal, and appreciative that I actually got to witness that. Actually, that's a gift from Keith. I think I probably said more than 5 times how much I loved it. And so I think he felt bound to buy me one. Who knows? But anyway, that's where that came from. The last thing on my pedal board, you may notice at this point I don't have it really plugged in.
Yeah, it's not in frame either. But
yeah. I mean, well, you know, and a wah-wah pedal. We know wah-wah pedals. I mean, I'm not real picky on wah-wah pedals. I've basically used, I've used every kind of wah-wah pedal, whatever has been near me, I'll use it. I like them when they have a little bit of the ability to change how the throw is, where the wah is, how deep it goes. A friend of mine told me about this company, Jam, and they make this pedal called the Wacko, and it's as good as any. Should I move it over, Robert? Move it over here just to show.
Yeah, you can hold it up or something.
Here's a little bit less sweep, right? I usually go about halfway up, just where when my mouth starts going like that, that's about when it feels right to me. And the real test is when you saturate a little bit more. I really like this pedal. It seems to handle the distortion better, and I'm actually running it pre-distortion. I don't think I have I could do it post, but this seems to be the best for me. You'll notice I hesitate on, it's like this almost feels like too many pedals for me, because I just like the sound straighter into the amp, but they've really made it so that I can use this, and it's as close. I would say pedal boards on average, and I had a long discussion with Tom Bukovac about this, because his pedal boards tend to be, put it this way, I have pedal board envy when I look at his pedal board, the size of that pedal board. He does not do a lot of preamp stuff, booster. He swears that he thinks that the way it generates the tone a little bit is an advantage to going into the amp. At least that's what he told me about 5 years ago. Now, he may have changed his mind, so you may have to bug him about that. But he sets his tones on his guitar and the amp basically, in reaction to what the pedal board is doing to the guitar. I mean, I suppose that you roll back a little volume, you roll back a little bit of tone, and that's the net effect. So this amount of pedals for me seems to get the job done. I may hear a pedal that excites me, forces me to rethink this. Maybe at some point I step it up a little bit or get a little additional pedal board. But for right now, this feels like it has enough for me to express myself. And then usually if I go and I'm playing out somewhere, this would be in the studio context. For live, this is plenty. If I can't get it done with this, I shouldn't be out there. But in the studio, I usually bring a little gig bag of other assorted pedals, just in case I need, something a little crazier. But if this is all I have, I'll probably survive. So anyway, that's pretty much my assessment of pedals at this point. And I love the fact that Robert, he thought it would be a good thing for me to even, like I mentioned earlier on in this segment, get out of my comfort zone and have to make this stuff work in another environment. It really is the litmus test for this kind of setting. And if I play songs like a little bit later today, I mean, you're gonna see some episodes. I do have more than one T-shirt, but we're gonna shoot a bunch of episodes today. So that's why I'm sure some of you guys would sit there and go, "This guy has no wardrobe." That is true, but I'm sporting friendship commanders, by the way. Jerry Rowe, Buick, rock on. You guys are great. I'll be using this pedal board on some of my giant descriptions, shall we say. And I'll be fidgeting and twisting knobs as I go to kind of support what I'm talking about. But this really does it. And now I'm going to open it up to Robert to see if we got any questions that I have missed on this. Robert?
No, I think that was pretty good. Have you changed any of the pedals since you first got it?
Yeah, I did change out. I can't remember when I first got it. I know that I had a different preamp for sure in this, and when I heard this Vertex pedal, I jumped to it.
Oh, cool! So you liked those so much when you heard them.
Both Vertex pedals. As I said, it was basically a gift from Mason for doing his podcast, which, I mean, that's awfully sweet. But I heard him, and immediately, because of this, I look for subtleties as far as in distortion, because each level, as I played earlier on, helps me with my articulation on certain songs. It's like what I would do with the amp, like if you can't see this, can you? Or can you?
Yeah, they can see it.
Okay, great. Like if I'm playing, I may play a segment of a song here and then turn it back to here, or find this, right? Because that's really overdriving these tubes in a certain way. You go to the second channel, the same thing. And so I don't have we have switchers for these amps, but it doesn't allow you to get into the volume knob type situation and attenuate in these smaller increments. So that's really what I feel these two Vertex pedals allow you to do. It's almost as if you've got maybe a range from here, put this pick down, a range from here to here. And we'd say that's not a lot, No, it's not, but it's palpable when you're messing with the amp, you know, based on the volume pot and whatnot. So that allows me to get that small increment right up top, and that's it just, you know, and then like if you're, like for instance, I'll go back to kind of a cleaner tone, right? Without the full volume, then putting the steel string in, pulling the volume back. Right, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. And again, each one of you are going to process these things differently because all of our hands are totally different. The way that the music that you choose to play, the amps that you play, it's all those reactions are going to be, those relations, I should say, are going to be different. So really, the only thing that you're going to be able to do, if you like some of this stuff, if you like some of the stuff that I'm talking about, is just get them and just start twisting knobs. I mean, you know, I've said noodling is life. That is life. Twisting knobs is life for us guitar players too, right? It's a combination. That's what we do. We noodle and we twist knobs. Outside of that, the eating, sleeping, and pooping, you know, those are the other parts that we got to deal with. But other than that, we twisting knobs and noodling, these are great. And you know, in answer to your question, Robert, I've probably changed out some of the distortion pedals. I think the dual overdrive I had on it, I don't think the blues driver was on that, but that seemed the little brother to the dual overdrive.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's that.
One of the other things you should talk about, because I noticed you've been doing it the whole time you've been playing. You're using the volume pedal, but you're constantly messing with your knobs on your guitar. So it's like you're using the volume pedal, you'll turn it up and your volume knob down, or something. Like it's like this.
That's a great question, and you let these questions. Right, you're gonna hear you. Right, great.
I think people, like I said, if people aren't paying attention, watch Dan's right hand. Go back and watch it, and you are constantly tweaking.
That's a new thing. That's it. I was never a guitar player who played with a lot. You know, if you watch Clapton and any of the greats, they're always fiddling with stuff. I think for the first part of my career, it was just wide open. I didn't even consider these knobs as being integral to a guitar. I've since learned. Volume pedals were, I didn't talk about this volume pedal. I don't even know what this is called.
It doesn't.
LEHLE. It feels great. So far, no noise in the pots. That's usually when I get rid of them, when you hear a crackle. Same thing with wah-wah pedals. But for years, I always had a volume pedal as, well, in a session world, when you're tuning, whatever, it was a great thing. For me, also, I could do my those, you know, it's a great way to express yourself like a keyboard player or whatever. Post 80s, 90s, pedal boards out the window. They were left in a barn to rot. I didn't use volume pedals until now. So it forced me to do this. I'm not one of those great kind of technicians who can do the volume swells. I fumble all over that. So, but between the two, yeah, I've started to learn to manipulate all this stuff. And that's another thing. I'll say this I'll probably come back to this. This is what makes all this stuff fun, right? You guys are you're seeking this out because you think I have something to tell you, and I'm glad to share any and all of my experience. The best part of this experience for me is that I get to actually learn as I go. I mean, if we all pay attention, we are learning at every step of the way. I learn from every guitar player I watch, every record that I hear. It all affects me. And the great thing about it is we never arrive, right? Never arrive at the destination of what we think it is to be the most fulfilled musician, guitar player. So I enjoy all this, and this is new, Robert, so thanks for pointing that out. The volume pedal's new. This is the funny thing about this. I think I told Barry the wrong side to put this on. I think I was a left. Somebody have to look up that old pedal board. I think I used to do it with my left foot. This one feels a little strange, but it's here now, so I'm gonna stick with it. I'm not gonna have them change it.
I always thought right was, I'm a lefty too, because right is where your guitar sits, and it kind of bounces your guitar up and down, so I always went left.
Right, so there you go. There's the humor in it. He asked me which foot to put it on. I said, I don't know, just put it on a foot, you know. So, and I'm figuring it out right now. But again, way too lazy to change it. I'll just adapt to this. Usually, I just leave the thing up now. So that's kind of where the volume pedal is. But for in a live setting, or the other day when I did my one session, right, it was great. I could work on stuff and turn the guitar down.
And you said you used the volume pedal a lot in the 80s for the swells. Did you also use it as kind of like a gate? Because I know those
Yes.
rack systems would be pretty noisy.
My session career, it would, you know, if you were doing just a single overdub or the rock setting, it really didn't matter. It could be a gate, yeah, it could be that. When I was playing on movie scores or television scores or something like that, it was integral, because you just quiet down. You know, people don't want to hear you noodling. You can sit there and mess around, and it just keeps you quiet. And I can't even remember how my tuner setup was, but it wasn't like a situation where it muted everything, so you had to pull back on the volume pedal.
Okay. Tim Pierce has talked a lot about, he uses it as instead of a gate, he's constantly muting himself.
Yeah. I think that's a legitimate question, and the answer is probably that's what it was doing. It was just always on a pedal board, so that's how I used it. I heard a story that moved me. It really moved me. A dear friend of mine who's a great producer, Patrick Leonard. And a great keyboard player, just a great musician. You look him up if you want to see an impressive array of credits. But he was doing he was working with Jeff Beck. I'll just pick up that name here. I'd love to drop that name. One of my greatest heroes. He knew that Jeff inspired me beyond words. He told me of a situation where he was doing an overdub with Jeff. Jeff had flown to his studio. He didn't even bring a guitar. He had Fender Strats. It was his name on it, but they were shipped straight from the factory. Number one, right? He didn't have an amp. Basically, he just said, "You got an amp here?" I don't think he had an amp. I think he had like whatever was going on in the early '90s as far as in the box type distortion. And I got to look this up. I'll get back to you on this, because I'll actually text Patrick and find out what he was talking about. The net effect of that was that it sounded like Jeff Beck. He didn't come bringing any of his stuff, and it was like he found a way to make whatever in the room was there, make him sound like himself. He expressed himself. That's kind of the trajectory I've gone on with effects, with pedals, with amps, with guitars, actually, for that matter. I'm not denigrating those who are experts in this stuff, and we need them. So but it's just another way of looking at playing music. This is kind of my way. I don't get too hung up. I also don't like too many options, because then all of a sudden I find myself getting into a situation where I'm more worried about how I've tweaked a pedal than I am on actually what I'm trying to express, play musically. So that's me 2025. Not me, certainly 1987. If you find any pictures, please don't post them. Thank you for your time. And here we go. Robert and I have come up with a lot of different scenarios, and I have to kind of work at containing my excitement, because they're going every which way. I mean, there's so much to talk about. So I'm going to try not to stammer too much and go down too many rabbit holes on each episode. But all this stuff to me is connected. I can't talk about one thing without talking about the next. For me, music, well, I'll just say it, noodling is life, and I'm excited to join you in that endeavor. Till next time, see you.